the people at? Where they at? Get down. Time to get on. It's time to party. Hey, hey.
Episode 119 of Amari Purple Talk, a podcast where I share my thoughts on the Prince musical singularity. I'm Richard Cole, the Amari and Amari Communications, and every episode I break down everything in the world of Prince and all Prince-related music and artists, as well as all genres of music that has had a major influence on his art. And if you enjoy the content of this episode, please download, listen, like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and keep up to date. All right, and with that out of the way, let's get started. And we're bringing back a brother who was very instrumental in the success of season 3 of Amari Purple Talk. Say, welcome back, Mr. Alex B. Or is it Mr. Bond? I'm not quite sure.
Thank you, Mr. Cole. Thank you.
Da-da, da-da. Welcome back, man.
Thanks. I appreciate that.
All right. So this week, we are talking about the Batman. Now, by the time this airs, we're recording this on the anniversary date of the 1989 Batman movie and the Prince soundtrack that came with it. And we're going to talk about the album. We're going to talk about the movie. We're going to talk about our favorite Batman comics. And for those that aren't comic book sweaties, you know, we'll have a few suggestions on what you might want to read. And as always, whenever I do a Batman episode, I got to shout out 2 people that are in the ancestral plane right now. One is a brother from our personal inner circle. Actually, the guy that in our conversations about comic book movies predicted that Jack Nicholson would be the Joker. Batman's suit would be body armor, all black, and Prince would do the soundtrack. And that's the one and only John Rochester. Rest in peace, brother.
Rest in peace, John.
Yeah. And another guy who I never met, but had a very successful show called, first it was AMC Heroes, then Collider Heroes. An inspiration for me doing a podcast. And like I said, I never met him. He did like one of my Twitter posts, though. And that's about it. But it has had a huge impact on me as far as doing podcasts. And that's the one and only John Schnepp. And rest in peace, John.
Rest in peace.
Yeah. And all right. So now let's get started. And I guess we'll talk about the origins of Batman. The Batman comic book was created, or actually co-created, by artist Bob Kane and writer Bill Finger. This is back in 1939. Of course, it wasn't called DC back then. I think it was called like National Periodicals, but they were riding high on the success of Superman, and they tasked Bob Kane with the assignment of, hey, we need more superheroes. What have you got? And he and Bill Finger kind of kicked around some ideas and came up with the Batman character that we all know and love, and has been successful in comic books, and movies, and TV shows, and animated series for what has it been, like 80 some odd years now?
Yeah.
Over 80 years?
Over 80 years, yeah.
Ooh. That's some longevity.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. And I remember there was a reprint comic of Batman #1, because my memories are definitely the TV show, also the like what was going on in the early 70s, which was a sharp contrast from the TV show. But overall, with probably one exception in the comics, overall, like memories of things like the Joker and all of that, that was, you know, where he was like this always laughing, and it was comical and campy.
Yeah.
But I remember reading a reprint of Batman #1, and the Joker was everything but that. I mean, this was like, you know, serial killer, and like I think
Really?
there was one, yeah, it was one panel, you know, he wasn't smiling at all. He was sitting there plotting, like, yeah, I'm going to do this and commit this crime. And I mean, it was heavy. I mean, you know, as an 8-year-old reading that, it didn't like frighten me, like scare me, like horror or anything.
Right.
But I realized just how serious, you know, they treated that character way back in 1940, as opposed to how they had him on the TV show. But I guess we'll get into some
Well,
of
then,
that later.
so then what you read was a reprint from the original issue back in 1939, or maybe it was just a few years after they created. Was that like the first appearance of the Joker?
Yeah, it was the very first
The
one.
one of your okay, so that was back in, you said like in 1940?
Yeah, 1940. Yeah, for
Okay.
those that don't know, yeah, so Batman started in issue number 27 of Detective Comics
Yeah.
in 1939. And just over the course of that year, he had become just as successful as Superman.
Yeah.
So just like Superman ended up getting his own comic book. And that issue, yeah, it introduced the Joker, it introduced Catwoman. You know, it was kind of the beginning of his rogues gallery, where before it was kind of like how what they used to call pulp stories or detective stories,
Right.
where you would have like not necessarily super villains or costume villains. You know, it was him going around the world, you know, solving crimes and maybe fighting the occasional vampire too. But
Yeah.
yeah, like I said, it's serious stuff for back then. And Batman was a serious character. Again, sharp contrast from the TV show.
Very.
Yeah.
Well, you know, I think my first exposure was the TV show. I really didn't read the Batman comics. Actually, my my very first comic book was actually Spider-Man. So so maybe I started kind of leaning towards, you know, towards Marvel. I mean, I knew of Superman and I kind of knew of Batman, but somehow those stories just didn't appeal to me. Somehow, I don't know, Spider-Man's story appealed to me more. And I guess maybe because, you know, I'm a little kid and I looked at Spider-Man as a teenager and I felt like he was closer to me in age or whatever. So I know my very first comic was actually Spider-Man. But, you know, and I know this whole topic is about Batman, so we won't jump jump into the whole Marvel side of things. But you're right. My first exposure was from the TV series. So to me, Batman started off as comical, and you know, and I mean, and I used to watch the series all the time. Don't get me wrong. I didn't sit there and judge it. I thought it was good. I mean, yeah. You know, I was like, oh my goodness, I love this. You know, and you know, bam and pow, and you know, you know, music playing while they're fighting, and the different characters, and like you said in the TV series, the Joker with that was played by what's his name, Caesar Romero.
Yeah, Caesar Romero.
You know, and he was, I mean, he laughed a lot, but you know, once again, you know, now in hindsight, as I look back, I mean, yeah, they were always conniving and everything, and you know, Batman had everything in his utility belt, and
the best shark repellent,
right? You know, and it worked. You know, you know, and Robin with his quick one-liners like, "Holy, you know, holy cheeseburger, Batman! What do we do now?" You know? And but okay, so you know, now that I think about it, I don't know if Robin's origins were ever explored in the comics. I mean, not in the comics, but in the TV shows. I mean, was it even explored? What about Batman's origin? Was it ever explored in the TV show? I mean, were there flashbacks of his? I'm thinking it was too campy and too comical that maybe they didn't want to get that deep into their backstories. You know, because
I remember because I just like watched like the first episode, because I, even before I decided to do this as one of the topics, there was a book. It's called The Batcave Companion,
Mm-hmm.
that I bought from this website. It's called Tomorrow's Publishing.com. And in that, it had like that whole 60s, 70s history of not only the Batman comic, there was a section in there devoted to the Batman TV show.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and it had like the, the episode guide and all of that. And I know I'm shouting out all these different plugs now, but wherever you can watch the reruns of the show, there is a streaming service that has, I think it maybe the first couple of seasons or something. But that first episode, just rewatching that, and it's like, man, did that bring back some memories? But just with one sentence, there's Adam West, and he talks about, I've devoted my life to fighting crime since my parents were murdered in front of me. And that was it.
Oh, okay.
That was it. That's all you needed. Yeah.
That's all right. Okay. So there were no flashback scenes. It was just a statement. And then like, okay.
Yep. Back onto the camp now.
Right. Back to the campiness.
We got to fight the Riddler. Let's solve this riddle. Holy crosswords, Batman,
Right.
But yeah, I see, for me, I can't remember if it was the TV show or the comics, because I remember when I was little, my dad taking me to his barbershop, and in this barbershop, in addition to like whatever magazines, Ebony, Jet, whatever was laying around, or newspaper laying around, there were a few comic books. And I remember one was on the Marvel side was Daredevil. And of course, for me, my first comic book was the Fantastic Four, for the record. But in the barbershop, there was Daredevil, and then there was Batman. And I wish I could remember what issue that was, because I remember that had an impact on me. And I might have had a vague memory of the TV show at the time. But what struck me about this comic book that was in the barbershop, I don't know if it was drawn by Neil Adams or Irv Novick, now it's all running together. I thought it was Neil Adams, but it might not have been. But it was the Batman with the longer pointy ears, the longer cape. Everything was taking place at night. And there was one panel, like I said, I wish I could find this issue. And Robin wasn't even in the book. It was him and Batgirl on the rooftop. And even she looked different than what you see in the TV show, because her cape was long. Yeah. And then, maybe down the line, Robin looked cooler in the comics than he did on the TV show too. But as far as the TV show having an impact, for me, it was second grade. Okay. When they announced that, coming to Channel 30, Batman, Monday through Friday, like, cool, all right. And I remember and that coincided with the first week of school. And all of us, soon as that bell rang, all took off running. Because I think the bell would ring at 10 minutes to 3 or 5 minutes to 3. My house was 4 blocks from the school. So it's we got to make it home. Just in time, and just in time to get to the, the little animated opening credits and the theme song and all of this stuff. And I know there's folks listening what does this have to do with Prince? Well, speed up, sir. Speed up. Well, Purple listeners. So actually, speaking of that theme song, the opening credits, and again, for those that don't know, there's people that, know Prince history, okay, on June 5th, 1962, Prince ate a cracker, So, they know that the very first thing that Prince learned to play on the piano was the Batman TV show theme.
Okay, but in you know, and just kind of to piggyback off of that, see, and I guess this is where we got to like collaborate stories, because I heard that he used like a box with some newspapers and he would, you know, bang it out, you know, dun 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 dun. So it could have been a piano, it could have been a box full of newspapers that he treated like a drum. But I guess the point that we want to make is that there is a correlation between Prince and Batman even before Prince became famous. So
Exactly.
that was, you
Right.
know, there's actually, you know, so for the people, as you said, for the people who are wondering like why they're talking about this TV show so much, you know, it's a
Oh,
perfect segue into, you know, into the irony, if you will,
Yeah. Or
of the Prince
symmetry.
mythos. Yeah,
Symmetry.
symmetry. Yeah,
The line of coincidences.
exactly. Yeah.
One day. And, you know, another fun comic book, or not, well, maybe comic book related fun fact. I was trying to find in his book, The Beautiful Ones. And it's sad that he only had time to write 50 pages
Hmm.
of that himself. But he also had notes, you know, because this book was still in the planning stages before he transitioned.
Hmm.
But there was something, I guess, in one of the chapters, one of the side notes. Oh, he was talking about superheroes and superpowers. I know, like you and I were discussing before the show, you know, a lot of the, you know, utilizing of energy and manipulation of energy and things of that nature. And that's something that Prince was also aware of too. And one of those things in hindsight, like, oh, you know, that's what I was doing when I was a child, was manifesting this power or that power.
Hmm.
And on the side note, is he had a bunch of notes for the editor to take a look at as well, where he points out that actually the TV show he would run home to see from school was the Superman TV show. You know, to him, George Reeves was the dude. You know, he liked the cape and the flying and, you know, all of that stuff. But yeah, that would have been a hard TV show theme to
Yeah, it was.
pound out. No, trust me. That one of the things I loved about the Batman TV show, and again, if you notice, I think Prince, again, that symmetry carried a lot of love for that music.
Yeah.
If you listen to the extended version of Let's Go Crazy and Ushi Shiwa
Oh, Chishiwa, yeah.
from Apollonia 6.
Yeah.
If those two things alone don't scream out fight music for the Batman TV show, or like especially like the middle of Let's Go Crazy, or that extent, that kind of like jam they do in Let's Go Crazy.
Yeah.
That's, you know, you see him on the motorcycle in some of those scenes in that opening montage. That's, you know, that's Batgirl on her bike. You know?
Yeah. Yeah, because I
So,
believe she had a purple motorcycle. If I
yeah, you
remember
think you're right.
correctly.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and you're kind of looking at the themes of purple. I mean, she had a purple motorcycle. Her outfit was pretty much purple. Um, you know,
Batman
and
has
even yeah, even incorporating, like, even looking at the Joker, his outfit was kind of purple.
yeah.
So, you know, once again, you can see that symmetry there. You can start drawing lines here.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's heavy connections
Yeah.
to it. And that's what this has to do with Prince. We're going to continue. Yeah. So, I mean, you know, the TV show itself, it ran for 120 episodes on ABC for 3 seasons. So that's January 1966 to March 1968.
Wow.
Yeah. And, you know, we were little kids. So, you know, this was, you know, we didn't really pick up on the corniness till probably what, adolescence, probably.
Well, yeah.
You
I
know,
mean,
yeah.
you know, I'm amazed at that fact you just shared. I mean, because, you know, as kids, obviously we watched it in syndication, so we saw it every day. And to
Right.
me, I figured they had to be on easily 8 or 10 seasons, because it seemed like, I mean, I'm like, wow, I thought it was longer than that.
Well,
3 seasons is not really that long, but it just when
well,
you're watching the syndication every day because it's a new episode.
well, because it came on twice a week
Yeah.
in this original run.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I think originally they wanted it to be it was going to be a serious show at first, and I think it was going to be an hour long. But I think one of the network executives, during the planning stages, he found himself with like a stack of Batman comic books on the plane, and just how the comics were written, early mid 60s.
Yeah.
That was the tone. And also too, this is a world where, there's so much going on. You got race riots, you got the Vietnam War going on, you got this thing going on, that thing going on, generation gaps and all this heavy stuff that television was meant to be a distraction, probably even more of a distraction
Right.
than now, depending on how you look at it. But especially for then, you had all that Gilligan's Island, you had, Beverly Hillbillies, and, these sort of shows that were kind of detached from what was going on in the real world. And then, they made the Batman TV show no exception. So
Yeah.
hence the sort of, the campiness and the light tone of everything. But again, just watching it recently, it's still not bad. Like I said, we kind of take it for
No.
what it is. And we
Right.
know that wasn't what the Batman character was supposed to be anyway.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
But, those fight sequences, they're still cool. Those are
Right.
still fun to watch. And, and it's fun to laugh at some of the, them not taking the show seriously. It's
Right.
fun to laugh at, and it's still enjoyable.
Well, yeah, it is. It's like a live action comic book. You imagine the panels, and that's how it was. You see, the blam and the zam and the, wowie,
That way, yeah.
and it was just like watching a comic book,
Yeah.
in real time, and I mean, I like the show. I've never said anything bad about it. Granted, I haven't seen it in a number of years, but it's it would always hold a special place in my heart.
Oh yeah, like I said,
And when I call it campy, but it's it was campy, but if I can stress the campiness in a positive light and not a negative light, it was one of those shows where they didn't take themselves too seriously, and and the fun, and even after. I mean, it's amazing that it was on for 3 years, and you just think about like so many years after that, Adam West went to so many different comic cons or comic book collections, and there was so much love from people, and
oh yeah,
and he had this new fan base, and it was like you were only on TV for 3 seasons, which equates to about 3 years, but you had such an impact on a generation, and it's like, and sometimes it's not the quantity of time, but it's the quality of time. I share that with a lot of people that, just because something was on for a long time, or maybe you known a person for a long time, it's not so much the quantity of time, but it's the quality of time. So in those 3 seasons, I mean, and I'm pretty sure they were not, and you never know, back then they didn't use the word viral, but there's no way they would know even now, almost 50 some odd years later, people are still talking about that show and how great of a show it is, and how much love that the stars got when they went to these conventions, and autographs and pictures, and it's a lot. And you're like, wow, we really did set out to create a movement, but they just did. And sometimes the best way to find something is don't look for it. And I don't think they were looking for a lot of success. They were not looking to be taken serious. It was kind of meant to be campy, because back then, comic books are always looked upon as just, something that little kids do. Give this to little Johnny, so he can get out of our hair.
Yes.
Let's just keep it light. And that's how I think they approached it. And there's nothing wrong with that, because You know, I mean, there's times when, you and I mean, heck, you and I really bonded over collecting comics. And
Yeah.
a lot of people didn't understand the reason why here we are in high school trading comic books in the bathroom, and guys were like, what's what these two nerds, and,
Because
you know,
we
right,
didn't want to see the girls watching us trade comics.
right. We want the girls to see us doing that. We're going to the bathroom. We don't care if the guys saw us. We don't care about them. We didn't want the girls to see us. We're in there trading like, you have the issue, number 188. Like, yeah, I need 188. I need 188. Now 189 and 190, and to complete
Yeah.
the Phoenix arc or something. And so it was always looked upon, comic books are for kids. And now, as we look at comics now, I mean, obviously, you and I have read some comics where you're like, oh, this is not for the kids.
Oh yeah.
This is not for the faint of heart, and
Yeah, and that was the evolution. Like Marvel, even during the 60s, that was where they were reaching an older audience. It wasn't just kids, it was,
right.
or not just even high school. It was, college, and they were devoting, having Stan Lee come and lecture at colleges in the late 60s and early 70s. But yeah, DC was kind of slow to catch up. They didn't kind of make that move into expanding, although there were college age, in reading that book, the Batcave Companion, there were college age readers of Batman, and their memories were of, again, that classic, with the Bob Kane, Bill Finger era where Batman was serious. And, I mean, even at a point, there's a big debate now. Oh, Batman's killing people in movies. And it's like, well, he was killing them in the early comics, but like around Batman #1 was when he made the vow to stop using guns and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And which is cool. That's, that works. And, even some of the later movies, whether they kind of glossed over it, I think this latest one, the Batman, kind of puts everything back in its proper perspective.
Yeah.
And everything. But that's another discussion for another time. But getting back to where DC was kind of slow to embrace older audiences, starting with Batman, and Neil Adams, Denny O'Neil, the artist and writer for Batman in the late 60s, early 70s. Their run, again, is where we started to see the return of that serious Batman.
Yeah.
And that was the Batman as we were growing up. When, especially by the time we get to 1978, and then there's a Superman movie that was, that's out, and it works, and it captures who Superman is, and they took it seriously. And, for years they were trying to get a similar Batman movie. And I know us as comic book readers, as fans, and then now as we're getting into high school and then, later college, like, the TV show was cool, but if there was going to be a Batman movie, no, it has to be serious.
Right.
It has to, it has to take place at night, and, it can't be the Adam West Batman. No. And this is where, and this is where I don't know if you were part of those discussions or not, but like the rest of the crew, of course, John Rochester included, when we would sit around and sort of fan cast, like, oh yeah, we hear that they want to make a Batman movie. Well, and this is before they even cast Michael Keaton or anything.
Yeah.
We would sit around like, well, who would be Batman? And somebody threw out like Harrison Ford. It's like, yeah, that's a good idea. That's what and then who would be Robin? It's like, well, I guess maybe Michael J. Fox. He could still play a kid. Yeah, he could be Robin. And that's when I think John took over the conversation and was like, yeah, those are cool choices, but whatever they do, they can't have the leotard, the skin tight underwear, and You know, it has to be body armor, has to be all black, you know, because I guess what people don't know about like old, you know, printing old comic books, you know, or printing comic books back in the day, right around World War II, they had to, I guess, conserve a lot of black ink.
Hmm.
So they had to use a lot of blue tones. So whenever you see something black, it always had to have like blue highlights, or they would just make it blue.
Yeah.
So by the time you got to the 70s, then Batman had like a powder blue cape and cowl, and he still looked cool, but it was like, how is that going to translate on the film?
Right.
You know,
Right.
because here's this dark figure running around at night fighting criminals, but you can see him a mile away because he's got this gray and this powder blue
Right. And
costume.
don't forget the yellow. Don't forget the yellow bat insignia on his chest too. So
Yeah, which, yeah, that's a whole nother comic book discussion for that. But Frank Miller explained that perfectly, and we'll get to him in a minute too. But he explained that perfectly by saying, yeah, you know, it's a target.
right.
Because, you know, the logic was he couldn't, well, now he can, but in 1986, you know, he couldn't body armor his helmet,
Yeah. Okay.
you know, so it's like, oh, let's shoot at this yellow target, you know, where he's got the bulletproof vest.
Oh, okay. Now that I did know. I'm pretty sure I read that years ago and it made sense then. And but that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. And I was like, yeah, now I get it. But I was always a fan of the not yellow circle.
Yeah, me too.
You know, when I started reading, like, where's the yellow circle? Those older Batman comics, what happened? But that made its appearance in 1964. The yellow circle.
They did? Okay.
Yep. So anyway, back to Prince and the Batman. So John came up with the idea of the black body armor suit. Jack Nicholson has to be the Joker. That was a no-brainer. That's like one of those, like, I can't think of, I don't know. Let's just say, like, Robert Downey Jr. being Tony Stark. That's a no-brainer. John
Right.
Krasinski being Mr. Fantastic. That's a no-brainer. Jack Nicholson being the Joker in 1986 was a no-brainer. And Prince doing the soundtrack was a no-brainer.
Now that I didn't think was going to happen. That I was totally blown away with that when I heard that news. I mean, because when you think about, I mean, for the Batman movie that they want to create, you know, and they want to make, obviously they don't want it to be campy or flashy. And you know, and Prince has always been kind of flashy and flamboyant. You know, I wouldn't. I mean, granted, Purple Rain, you know, he had his dark moments, um, but to me, it was just such an opposite that he would actually be doing the soundtrack. I mean, I was happy about it. Don't get me wrong. I was like, sweet, you know. But for me, it was kind of like Prince is going to do the soundtrack for real. Like, okay, because I know that, you know, from and I'll be one of the first people to say this, that I did not want Michael Keaton as Bruce Wayne. I was very opposed to that. In fact,
Nobody.
I was going to boycott the movie over that. I was like, no, you do not mess up Bruce Wayne. No, this is what I grew up on. No.
I know. We thought it was going back to the TV show. It was like,
Yeah,
they
that's what I
said it
thought.
was going to be serious, but no, they're going to
Yeah,
go back to,
because right. Remember Michael Keaton was basically like a comedic actor. So I'm
yeah,
like, why would you? I was like, Bruce Wayne is not funny. He's not comedy. He's not comical. You know.
right,
I'm like, "Rrr," you know.
right. And I mean, and, you know, Bruce Wayne as a, I guess, a persona, you know, because really, you know, in this case, Batman is the real personality. Bruce Wayne has become the mask.
Right.
But it was always different to how, I would say, stereotypical Clark Kent
Yeah.
would be, because even in the earlier comics and elements of even the TV show, he wasn't. I don't know. It was weird. He wasn't like this really ultra nerdy guy. He was kind of like, he carried himself in a kind of in a cool way, but it was like, well, he needed an excuse to disappear to go be Superman, so he would just run off somewhere, and people kind of mistook it for maybe a moment of cowardice or whatever.
Right.
But yet and still, this dude was like supposedly either the best reporter on the Daily Planet or the second best, depending on what Lois Lane did that week.
Right.
So he wasn't soft, but like I said, it like I guess with the Christopher Reeve film, he kind of had to play it that way, but it
Right.
worked. It worked.
Oh yeah, right. It was the perfect dichotomy, because you have, one of the universe's most powerful beings, as Superman, but then he has to portray himself as being like weak and docile and timid. I mean, even if you remember from the movies, and one scene comes to mind where I think he drops all of these papers out of his like briefcase or something, and I think Lois Lane has to help him up, and he's acting all nervous, like, "Oh my goodness, it's a girl. Oh, I don't know how to act." And and that was perfect. But then I think when you look at Bruce Wayne was always that millionaire playboy. He had the harem of women were throwing themselves at him. He played that. And for me, I felt like Michael Keaton couldn't do that. He couldn't be that millionaire playboy. I didn't see, and Michael Keaton, if you listen to this, no disrespect, I didn't see women throwing themselves at Michael Keaton like they would like a Bruce Wayne. Now, granted, when you think of a millionaire, women that throw themselves, and no disrespect to women, but I'm pretty sure certain women would throw themselves at a millionaire. But the way Bruce Wayne was portrayed in the comics, he was, dashing and debonair, and you almost kind of want to be like Bruce Wayne. I can tell you, I wanted to be more like Bruce Wayne than I did Clark Kent. I can tell you that. Yeah. I want to be like this guy, and the women like, oh my goodness, Bruce is here, and but yeah, that's how, that's one of the reasons why I was opposed to Michael Keaton playing Batman. It was just like, no, he can't. I mean, you're right with him, but even I guess him playing Bruce Wayne, and technically, I guess they could have put anyone behind the mask. I mean, but you can still tell it's Michael Keaton, and he pulled it off. I mean, I'll give him that. He pulled it off the way he did. And you're right, because that was the first Batman that was more practical with the body armor. He didn't have the campy suit from the 60s, because that's not stopping any bullets or knives. As spandex is not stopping anything.
Criminals would crack up laughing.
Yeah, exactly. It'd just be one shot to the chest, like, okay, next. Who wants to play hero now?
Yeah, but I don't know. There was a film, because you had all those elements coming together at the time. It was like, first they were announcing that there was a Batman movie. Yeah. Then they announced, the character Michael Keaton and Jack Nicholson, Kim Basinger.
Yeah.
And you got those announcements, and while we're still, because there was no Twitter, so you didn't have this sort of instant reaction. It was just kind of universally felt over time.
Right.
So between the announcement, the filming, and even like the first trailer, in between that, there was a film called Clean and Sober that stars Michael Keaton. He plays like this, I guess recovering alcoholic, or just an alcoholic that goes rock bottom.
Yeah.
And just from the scenes in that trailer, because I still haven't seen that film, but just by the scenes in the trailer, then I'm like, well, okay, well, I guess he can handle serious stuff. Yeah, I still don't know, but that that gave me a little bit of hope. Like, well, okay, at least he can play dramatic.
Mm-hmm.
But it was that first trailer that, by the time it got to the clip of him grabbing the criminal and going, "I'm Batman," Yep, that's Batman. Yep, yep. I'm convinced. I'm convinced. But then, that's been the thing with every, superhero casting, especially Batman. It's like everybody that, I don't know, probably except for maybe Val Kilmer. And, well, George Clooney, we kind of live to regret.
Right. We won't bring that up now. So
We won't bring that up. But everyone, it's everybody has that reaction now. So this person's cast as Batman. It's like, oh no, not that guy. No, I don't want that person being that. No, 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 no. And then the trailer comes out and it's like, all right, cool. Or the movie comes out and it's like, cool, okay. Yeah, that's Batman. But in 1988, 89, we didn't know any of this stuff.
Oh no, exactly.
And I think we were more interested in Prince doing the soundtrack. And I remember there was an article in Rolling Stone that pointed that, that was, I guess they leaked the fact that Prince was doing the soundtrack. And they talked about his visit on the set, which if you get maybe the Blu-ray or there's a 20th anniversary DVD, if you get one of those, and there's a lot of documentaries on it. One of those documentaries that it touches on the soundtrack, but it has footage of Prince on the set with Tim Burton. Like it's just like a quick, almost blink and you miss it.
Oh, okay.
But it's like, a couple of clips of footage, and you see Prince on the set talking to Tim Burton, and they're discussing what Tim Burton wants for this scene or that scene, and that's, I think, what Rolling Stone was reporting, back when they announced Prince was doing the soundtrack. And I remember the part of the article where they say, he watched some dailies of what was being filmed, and he walked around the set, and at the end of the day, he tells Tim Burton, I hear music in these scenes. And then he flies back to Paisley Park and gets to work. I'm like, yes. That's what I'm talking about.
Well, I mean, it's really interesting when you listen to the soundtrack, because certain songs have sound bites from the movie, and some soundtracks, you can hear that also. But I know that quite a few of the songs he's cutting sound bites from the movie. And one thing that I thought that was really unique about the soundtrack, when you listen to Bad Dance, and he mentions the line from Electric Chair, and then that becomes a song on the album.
Yeah.
And then also, was it in Bad Dance also when he mentioned I've seen the future and it will be. And then that's another song. So it's almost like, wow, okay. So I mean he was finding inspiration all over the place. And I thought that was unique. Like, oh wow, you actually had songs that he wrote, I guess, around these sentences or he wrote songs around these choruses. And to reiterate what you just said, I guess, when he was on set, because they said that, the movie was still in production as he's writing his music. So it's not like, they give him a rough cut. Well, I guess he had to get those sound bites from someplace. Maybe in post editing, I guess.
Oh yeah,
he got the rough cut, and then he was able to splice those in there.
Yeah, I think they were FedExing him the some of the rough cuts.
Okay.
Yeah, I think once he got back to Paisley Park, I think they were, sending him, this is, this scene in the movie, what have you got for that? And I think I forget how many songs he wrote for that.
Okay.
Yeah, it was, he had a few that were laying around.
Yeah.
That I think because of the movie, he might have changed the words. Like Vicky Waiting was originally called Anna Waiting.
Yeah.
That was for somebody, Anna Fantastic, who he was seeing at either prior to that or still at the time.
Yeah.
So he just changed it, and probably changed some of the sentences too, because it mentions Gotham City.
Yeah.
And I think Electric Chair was another one. I think he changed some of the words too. on that. But he had like 2 or 3 that were already kind of in circulation for like the next album, and then everything else was for the film.
Yeah.
In that, but yeah, that was the thing that I was excited for. Like reading just that little bit in the Rolling Stone article, and it was like, and never mind if Michael. I don't even think I've seen the trailer yet, so it was like, never mind Michael Keaton's Batman. This,
Yeah, no, I think we were more excited for the soundtrack than anything.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, it's like, oh, even if the movie sucks, no, this was it, and. Of course, later the trailer comes out. So yeah, we're really hyped now because we've seen what the Joker looks like and what he's going to sound like. We see that Michael Keaton can pull it off, and then it does when we see the film. The thing, yeah, he's a great Batman, but I know for years I kind of had issue with the Bruce Wayne part until I was reading some stuff with Tim Burton and how. The reason why they cast Michael Keaton, because he does have this intense look, and they were going more for the psychology of Batman as opposed to right. Okay, this is Batman, this is Bruce Wayne. Bruce Wayne's a persona, which other movies have done an excellent job of that balance. This is Bruce Wayne and Batman. But for them, they were doing an actual character study of Bruce Wayne. Batman's going to do his thing when he's on the screen. But that that awkwardness, that intense craziness that, Michael Keaton can convey in acting that part, that's what they were looking for with it. So every time I watch it now, then I go, okay, yeah, and to me, he's the Sean Connery of Batman. Where Robert Pattinson to me now is the Daniel Craig of Batman.
Okay, I can see that.
Yeah.
I can see that.
Yeah, and so we get to the excitement of the film. And now help me out with this one, because you got me a copy of the soundtrack and then I paid you back for it, or I don't know. I don't know if it was the same week or the same day, but I remember coming back from California, just for the summer. And was it the same day as the Batman movie came out? Because I don't know, you've seen it already, I thought.
I'm sure I did see it. Well, was it the soundtrack I got you, or was it the single? Because remember, the Bat Dance single came out first.
Well, I think movie and soundtrack came out the same day.
Okay.
If I'm not mistaken. But like I said,
I know memory gets kind of cloudy.
Yeah, I can't.
Memory gets kind of cloudy then. So.
Yeah, it's kind of like I'm off the plane and it's like, yeah, we got to, Batman. Oh yeah, that movie's. It's like you saw it. Okay, how is it? Great. We're going to go see it now. Cool. Okay, but this is soundtrack. Thanks, dude. Yeah. Well, how much? Okay, here's $10. Here, thanks.
It's like, here's your copy.
Right. Thanks. Thanks, dude. But yeah. But outside of, like I said, the circumstances, I remember, like I said, we're there seeing it, but I think you had seen it already. And so I'm watching it for the first time. And yeah, I was blown away. That was, you kids today have it so easy. You got 80 superhero movies that come out a week, 200 superhero shows that come out, and the effects are great, the characters are great. Even the cheapest budget still looks better than what we were getting with the stuff that didn't work.
Right. Yeah.
We had the stuff that didn't, there was a Captain America TV movie.
Goodness.
There was, the Incredible Hulk didn't fight any monsters.
No, he just picked up a whole bunch of construction equipment.
He throws somebody, across the room, and
Right. And then do you remember? I don't know if you remember this, but there was a Justice League TV show. I don't think it was. I think it was just a one shot. I don't
Yeah.
think it was. Yeah, it wasn't a series. They just did like a one. And I think Adam West.
It was, yeah, it was.
Yeah,
It was,
in
yeah,
that.
Adam West and Burt Ward.
Yeah.
And then everyone else. They had a Superman, they had Flash. And again, they didn't fight anybody, did they? It was just all I remember, they were sitting around the Batcave or the Hall of Justice.
The Hall of Justice. Yeah.
And they were having they were having this meeting, and they were telling jokes.
It was campy.
It was campy.
It was campy.
So
but we watched it anyway. Like, whoa.
So right.
There's the Flash.
So anybody that has any problems with Zack Snyder's Justice League, I'm sorry, what was it called? I forget what the show. Go find it. I'm sure it's on YouTube somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
Go find it, and then come back holler at us. Because I'm sorry, I love Zack Snyder's Justice League. I'm not a fan of the Joss Whedon cut of it at all, but I'll still take the Joss Whedon cut.
Oh my goodness! Over what we had to settle with. Yeah,
right. But yeah, man, I forgot all about that. I'm gonna have to go look that up now just to remember just how bad it was. I remember just being mad at television. Because when did that come out? We were like 9 or 10 or something when that came out.
Yeah.
Yeah. Nah, I'm sorry. Not hate it, but I was mad at television for a long time because of that. I think it took the Superman movie coming out or something to go, okay, we're fine now. There is hope. We can get more of these great movies if we keep getting good quality like Superman, and then Superman 2, and then the first couple of Batman films.
Yeah.
Yeah. But getting back to the 1989 version, and then with Prince's soundtrack in it, I love the scene with Party Man, and I love the scene with Trust. But I was slightly disappointed that some of the other songs didn't get the shine that I thought that they should have. Now, granted, I didn't want to turn the Batman movie into Miami Vice,
right.
and and have the future playing as Batman is in the Batmobile,
right, right.
But given how maybe not a story, but like you said, the way he positioned the samples from the film into the context of the movie, into the context of the soundtrack, I thought that maybe individual, like something like The Future, there was a great narrative, because you did have the dialogue from the film, and that flowed into the future. And then you had something from Jack Nicholson that flows into Party Man, and then something else from Jack Nicholson that flows into Vicky Waiting.
Yeah. And
then you have Bat Dance, which basically, it's the best commercial for the film.
Oh yeah.
Even though, I didn't mind that not being in the movie, because I thought that was a stroke of genius, just to say, okay, well, before the movie comes out and before the soundtrack comes out, here's Bat Dance.
Yeah.
And this just tells you everything you need to know about what's happening in the movie, or what you're going to see in the movie.
Yeah.
But yeah, as far as how they were positioned, because I think a couple of the tracks, Vicky Waiting, Electric Chair, they were just instrumentals.
Yeah, they were. You didn't really hear the lyrics, but you can kind of hear the music.
Right. And like I said, I didn't need it to be like Miami Vice or MTV,
right,
where you got all these quick cuts and Batman is fighting while the Future's playing.
Right.
But I thought that even they could have cranked the volume up on the Future in the beginning and just kind of let it fade into what's happening. like I said, it didn't need a music video version of it, but just kind of where those lyrics could have helped set the scene for what you were about to see in those first few minutes.
Yeah. But I wonder if your average movie goer would have had even known. Like, I kind of like, because when I listen to The Future, us being pretty much former musicians, I'm looking at it from a musical aspect, and I don't know. Because the overall theme of what Tim Burton wanted to do was he wanted a gothic feel to it. This melancholy, if you want to, just kind of dark and gray. The Future kind of has that, but I can understand why they didn't, as you say, turn the volume up on it. Because I think it would have kind of taken it would have overshadowed it just a bit, because to me, like, the Batman soundtrack to me was just like awesome. I loved a good majority of the songs on there. And you're right that for me, obviously a lot of the more up tempo songs would have to be some type of party scene or maybe some kind of club scene. Because I don't know if Scandalous was even in the movie, was it? I can't remember.
Oh yeah, at the during the end credits.
I was just doing it. So it wasn't part of the movie per se.
Well, here's the thing too. So you had Prince that did the soundtrack. This
right.
This I think was something that was never done before. This wasn't like how you had Isaac Hayes literally scoring Shaft.
Right.
Or Marvin Gaye literally scoring Trouble Man.
Yeah.
Maybe kind of closer to what Curtis Mayfield was doing with Superfly. But in that case, Curtis Mayfield's music elevated that film. You take that music out of there, and I'm sorry, folks, Superfly sucks without the music. With the context of the music, though, it elevates that, and it really hammers the point of what that movie was about. But by 1989, your soundtracks were standard. Like, here's the Star Wars soundtrack scored by John Williams.
Right.
You didn't have the Bee Gees come along and, do a couple of disco tracks for Star Wars.
Right.
To go with it, to market.
Right.
So this was kind of genius in itself. Not that Prince, the genius with him was just creating the music. But I guess the music supervisor or the liaison between, having Prince come on board to do this, and also too having to smooth it over with Danny Elfman, who was doing the actual score.
Right.
Well, they were like, well, no, you're still going to come out with the actual soundtrack.
Right.
Where this is, the Prince thing is, music inspired by the film.
Right.
And I think that was kind of the first time that we got that, where everybody's soundtrack after that was music inspired by the film.
Right. But yeah,
yep. And even the sound bites from the samples, people started copying that later on down.
Yep.
With their soundtracks. But so I don't know, it was different. It was very, very different.
Oh yeah.
But it worked.
No, it
worked.
Work.
Yeah. Now I'm trying to remember what I was trying to say. But with Danny Elfman, though, in the soundtrack, the scene with Batman and Vicky Vale in the Batcave, and actually later than that, when Alfred, who should have been fired that day for bringing Vicky down to the Batcave while Bruce was still Bruce Wayne.
I know. He broke bro code on that. It's like, bro, this is the Batcave. What are you doing?
What are you doing?
I felt like you needed to talk to her, bruh.
All you had to do was buzz me up.
Right. You put a whole operation in jeopardy here, Family friend or not. Like,
Right.
dude, seriously?
Yeah, I like how he brought that back up in the second one. Discretion. Yeah. Who let Vicky Vale into the back?
Right.
There I was minding my own business in this. Hi, Vic. I love that. But that scene is you hear Danny Elfman, he plays a snippet of Scandalous in his score.
Oh, you know what? He does. He does. Yeah, it's just a snippet. You're right.
Yeah.
Right. It is a snip. Yeah. No lyrics. That's how, and it's really more strings involved. The strings are really highlighted in that sample.
Hmm.
Okay. Yeah. Starting to remember now.
Yeah, but the song itself, it plays during the end
In
credits,
credits. Okay.
which was fine. I mean, you could have taken instrumental piece of that and use that in other points of the film too. But according to Prince, Tim Burton was under a lot of pressure, because he was used to kind of just doing his own thing. We talk a lot about studio interference, but this was a case where studio interference worked. The film became a massive success.
Oh yeah.
But the pressure that he was under, you know, Prince, even in that moment, stopped being Prince and was like, yes, Mr. Burton, what would you like? Okay, you want this song? Oh, well, I mean, I think the song worked. Oh, you don't want it? Never mind. I'll take it back.
Right.
And I mean, there's some, I don't know, there's not too many outtakes on that. I know people keep bringing up Dance with the Devil, which I heard not too long ago.
Oh, okay.
I think, I think it would have worked. They could have used that in the film.
Was it more of an upbeat? I'm trying to remember if I've heard that.
It's a, no, it's not the happiest song on earth, hence the title.
Oh, well, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's good. I mean, on the one hand, I could see why they didn't use it. I don't know. Maybe something's missing from it from it being an absolutely great Prince song. But still, even in the, what I heard, yeah, they could have used it. I mean, you could have substituted, say, Arms of Orion and put that in because it's a Batman film.
Okay.
Although, I could see where Prince was going with even that one, because that was the time too when you had all that Bryan Adams stuff in movies.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Those
Kenny
kind of big.
Loggins and
Kenny, I mean, well, I don't know if he had any slower stuff. I mean, a lot of his was that fast pace.
Yeah, his were more. Yeah, his was more
up-tempo.
fast.
But now I'm talking about like those big, really sort of bombastic ballads that they were using in all the big movies right around like late 80s, early 90s. I think Bryan Adams did like 2 or 3, like Robin Hood. He had a big, huge ballad in that one.
Okay.
Yeah, so I don't know if Prince was the first to do that or if he was just like, oh, I could do this better. And it's nothing against Arms of Orion. A lot of people kind of dismiss the song, but I enjoy it for what. I enjoy it for what it is. It's like I don't want to listen to it all of the time like other stuff on the record, but
right.
Sometimes if I'm in the mood to want to just listen to the whole album, it doesn't bother me. It's like, it's a nice ballad. Now it's on the Party Man now.
Right, exactly.
But, any more thoughts on the soundtrack or its placement in the movie? Or
well, like when I kind of did some loose research, that it was number one, on the Billboard 200 And also, the Bat Dance single was #1 also on the Hot 100. So that's one of those impressive feats by Prince again. So you have the #1 album also, with the #1 single. So, I mean, that speaks volumes within itself. And plus you had, I'm pretty sure Batman could have been, I don't know how long it stayed #1 at the box office, but I mean, I know it was up there. But I just remember the soundtrack being, that was rated pretty high. And then, songs like "Scandalous" obviously were on the R&B tracks a lot, as well as "Party Man." In fact, "Party Man," looking at my notes now, peaked at number 18. So, you're looking at two singles basically that cracked the top 20s. One was #1, and the album itself is #1. And then, and I know that "Scandalous," I know especially on the R&B charts, "Scandalous" and "Bat Dance" got a lot of airplay. So I think that's a very impressive feat.
Oh yeah.
Given that technically this was not a typical Prince album, like I say, it's music inspired by the Batman. So what I really wanted to know more about is how and why, they went to Prince on this. And of course, all this is controlled by, you have Warner Brothers Pictures and Warner Brothers Music. So the story goes that the reason is that they wanted to put more Prince music into the marketplace, because let me see, this is 1989, so that would have been the Parade album, would have been the last album he released before this.
No, it was Love Sexy.
Love Sexy was right before Batman, or was it right after Batman?
Right before.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, because you had.
So then, what was right after Batman?
Oh, let's see. I got them in order over here. Actually,
All right,
Graffiti.
cool.
Yeah, Graffiti Bridge.
All right, so Graffiti Bridge was after Batman. Okay, all right.
Yeah. So they was because I know it's weird. Like you said, we're former musicians, where that was sort of one of our go-to influences.
Oh yeah.
That was right up there. Whatever. Michael Jackson, The Time. Parliament Funkadelic, all of that. But kind of, I don't know. This weird dichotomy with, say, Purple Rain, where we kind of had this level field. Like, yeah, Prince is a definite influence. The Time is. Then you could just put Cameo in there, or you could put The Time in there, or you could put this group, that group. But it was just something about Purple Rain that after that, you have something like Around the World in a Day, where, the mainstream public didn't feel it as much as they did, say, Purple Rain. But meanwhile, you and I are looking at it for what it is. It's like, oh, this is great. This is great. Although I would have put She's Always in My Hair on here and taken off that record, or, we always used to have those talks. And then you had something like Parade, which was a little bit better, but the film tanked.
Yeah.
And people still weren't really ready for that direction, where we're looking at it like, oh, Parade, this is genius. This is great. We're still like, oh, I don't know what else was out later that summer, but like, you and I are like, oh man, we got to get the long version of, Another Love, a Hole in Your Head. And meanwhile, people are like, who? What? Prince? What? This is great. This is funky. And it's like, nah, you got to hear. I don't know. I can't think of who was out then. I think, Cameo had, what is it, Word Up or something by then.
Yeah.
People were feeling that.
Yeah.
So by the time, so Sign of the Times, again, that was another one where, that had some hits.
Yep.
And we were like, this is the greatest thing he's ever done. And people like, yeah. Yeah. So I think where And Love Sexy, that really, you and I did a whole show about that one. And that one lost a lot of people. And I think Warner Brothers was at a point like, okay, well, dude, why don't you just take a break? And like you said, there were people in Warner Brothers that didn't feel the same way.
Right.
So here's this opportunity, probably thanks to the fact that Tim Burton, now making a movie isn't easy. It's not the easiest thing to do. And a lot of times they don't have those songs ready to go. They don't say, well, here's the script, go write a bunch of songs for it.
Right.
So they didn't know what to do with those key scenes with the Joker, like the one in the museum and the big parade one. So just to kind of, while they were figuring it out, Tim Burton's, well, here, I'll just put 1999 here, and I'll put, Baby I'm a Star for the parade. And, Jack Nicholson's like, hey, I think Prince is a great guy. Why don't we just call him? And then I guess they brought the executives to contact the management, and, Prince's management at the time was like, yeah, you better jump on this, take this job. Because it gave Prince an excuse to make more music. Because at first the record company was like, nah, we don't.
Right.
Take a year off like everybody else. And I think Prince was just kind of like conceptualizing the next record. And then this opportunity comes along, like you said, where the movie executives were like, oh,
right.
Prince does great with his own soundtracks, bring him in.
Right, because you had Warner Brothers Pictures, and you had Warner Brothers Music. So obviously they're all underneath you still have two separate companies, but they're still kind of underneath the Warner Brothers umbrella. And I think that also was a contributing factor as well. I think had he been on any other label, I don't know if this would have even taken place. But and I can't verify if this article was accurate, but they said that Prince had to sign away his rights to the album and the songs just to work on the project. Yeah. And I know that had to be hard for Prince to do. So I was like, wow. I was like, I didn't know that. That blew me away when I read that, because I know that had to be excruciating for him. And they said that's one of the reasons why he really doesn't perform any of those songs live. Maybe he'll kick in Scandalous, for a few bars, and it's like, oh, let's move on to Adore.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like you really don't hear. I don't think I've ever heard Party Man live.
Oh, yeah.
Like the complete version, or is it just more than just a snippet? Okay.
Yeah, that and Bad Dance.
Okay.
The new tour.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
I've got a copy of the DVD of that one. Hopefully they'll put that out in the future, where everybody can have it. But yeah, I have a copy of it. I think let's see. You might have it on VHS somewhere. I think you made it.
I have nothing to play it in. I can tell you.
Let's see, because I don't know, because that I had it at first, and if I didn't get it from you, I'm trying to think who would have.
I will not confirm nor deny.
Oh yeah, let's edit this out of the.
Right. Yeah. I think
I didn't get that from you. What? I must have been mistaken. Yeah.
There you go.
Honestly, I don't remember where I had it, but I had it on VHS for a while, and then someone else gave me a nice, clean copy of the DVD.
Okay.
In that, so this will blow my chances of the estate ever giving me anything.
It's like, who's this? Who's this guy again?
I'm gonna have to beep all this.
Put him on the same list with Morris Day. No.
Hey, Morris, can I borrow your lawyers for a minute?
Right.
I'm going to need them. But yeah, but that was, the movie was still pretty hot and still fresh in the minds of the public. So it made sense for him to do those songs. But yeah, I don't think nothing I've heard since where he's done either Bad Dance or Party Man. Like you said, maybe Scandalous, where it's the first few bars and then it's off to something else.
Yeah.
But yeah, the soundtracks though, yeah, they are a different contract than your standard record contract. So I don't know if it's a thing of, even though Prince got all of his masters back, those 4 films, Purple Rain, Under the Cherry Moon, Batman, Graffiti Bridge, weren't on the table for that. Okay. But I'm assuming that with a movie soundtrack, that contract probably yields a much bigger payday, as far as advance money, and B, probably a bigger royalty anyway. Although he says he didn't get as much. I mean, he got big paid for Purple Rain, but I think he was using that in context of owning his masters in general, where something like, say, if he got a bigger percentage of, say, 1999 or Around the World in a Day, or I think even things he said in the late 90s where like New Power Soul, like that album, I think only sold, was it 100,000 copies? I think. But because he got the lion's share of the profit, he had more money than Purple Rain. Than, I guess the royalties from Purple Rain in general. So I don't know. It's different. But I would say Batman is a different thing than even Purple Rain. I think it's different. So maybe with that one, I don't know, what his overall feelings about that or what his memories of this album would have been. But I don't know. He hasn't said it. But then again, if you say something negative about Batman, I can see DC, coming with the lawyers quick. But I've never, he's never said anything negative about that particular project in general. So I don't know. I'm assuming that it was a bigger payday for him than even Purple Rain. Never mind, Under the Cherry Moon or Graffiti Bridge. Because those were low budget. Well, Purple Rain was low budget too. It just turned into this thing.
Yeah.
But
viral. As we would call today, Purple Rain went viral.
Imagine that in 1984. It went viral. The Prince get sick? What happened? Yeah.
I know exactly. What did he catch? Is it contagious?
If 1984 could see 2022.
Oh my goodness.
Man, this is insane. But yeah, back to the soundtrack, folks.
Yeah. But yeah, those are just just some of the little tidbits that I came across with him signing away his rights to the album and the songs, and I'm pretty sure he got paid, as you said, very, very well.
Yeah,
but it's and that's one in the person where I got this article from, because he made some really good points. It's like this is one of those albums that a lot of people don't know about. I mean, your hardcore Prince fans like us, we know all about the album. So,
right.
We're not shocked. But, I guess if you have your fans who are just now, it's so weird because just recently, a few months ago, I was at a bar and it was just, small bar. And on a jukebox, someone played 7 by Prince. And this friend of mine, or just an associate, she's really cool. She goes like, "Oh my God, this is Prince." I'm like, "Yeah." She's like, "I'm just now getting into Prince," and she's like, "And this is my song, I'm just getting into." And I'm like, "Well, when did you first hear this song?" She only had listened to it like maybe 3 or 4 months prior, and this was, this has happened sometime this year. And she goes like, "What's the best Prince songs out there?" I'm like, "Oh my goodness, it's like there's so many. I can't." I said, "If you like this album," and then I kind of just give her a few, and it's so refreshing when people, they hear some of these, even like I said, and Seven didn't really get that much airplay. I mean, there's a video to it, and Seven is one of my favorite songs because I just love that beat, and so I was assuming that she wanted more music, I guess, that sounded like that, and I explained to her like, well, just about every Prince album is different, so you have to really have an open mind, when you approach it, and so obviously, she wouldn't know anything about Bat Dance or anything from the Batman soundtrack. So I think with us having this dialogue, and if any of the listeners, maybe this is enough for them to kind of say, hey, let me go listen to this album, what they're talking about. When you guys, Scandalous is one of my favorite songs. Bat Dance is one of my other favorite songs. I like the whole idea with Electric Chair. If I'm going to be considered guilty for whatever crimes I think about, give me if a man is considered guilty for whatever goes on in his mind, then give me the electric chair for all of my future crimes. And back then that was heavy. And if you remember that's a Tom Cruise movie called what's that movie with Tom Cruise? And it's based upon that statement. Remember they had these, they call them seers or maybe oracles, where they would predict people would do these crimes and they go arrest the people before they did the crimes.
Minority Report.
Yeah.
Minority
Report. And you just think about just that line is and that in this and Batman came out before our Minority. I'm sure.
Oh yeah, long before. Yeah,
long before that. So you're thinking like, those people got the electric chair before they even committed the crime. So, you're just like, wow, it's like, this is really, and I like the fact that he had the song titles in Bat Dance. And I'm thinking, did he have these songs already completely written out? Or were, after he wrote the lyrics, he goes like, hey, you know what? I think I want to write a song called Electric Chair. And it's going to be this. And the chorus is going to go like this, and and he and the way he kind of dubbed in, I've seen the future and it will be, and he crafted this whole song around that sentence.
Mm-hmm.
I always thought that was unique. Like, yeah, it's pretty cool. So it's Bat Dance. I mean, the Batman soundtrack is one of my favorites. So, and I like what was it, Lemon Crush, and I like the Future also. Waiting for Big Key is not too bad. So,
and you raised a good point where I don't know, the mind of a Prince fan is very interesting because and also it's dependent on when you got exposed to Prince,
right,
or what era ends up being your favorite. And with Batman, it gets into this really weird area because it's a soundtrack for a movie that has nothing to do with Prince.
Right. Exactly.
And then you have even diehard comic book fans that, for the most part, if nothing else, they love Bat Dance and maybe not care for the rest of the album.
Right.
And then you have some that do care for the album, but most of the stuff that you hear, sadly, is mostly negative. Like, they do not like this at all. And it occupies this weird space.
Oh, yeah.
And, which is ironic because there's people like us that's like, well, we love the hell out of comic books and we love the hell out of Prince. And it's like I said, thanks to John Rochester, it's like, no, we can have both and it's going to work. And
I mean, well, even look at how Prince portrayed himself in a Bat Dance video. I mean, he's like Batman and a Joker. He's kind of split right down the middle. And I mean, he wants to embody both aspects. Whether you want to say one is good and one is bad. And obviously Batman's the hero, but when you read Batman in the comics, I want to say he's an anti-hero, nothing like the Punisher. But Batman has his dark moments, and so here you got Prince, who was kind of embodying both. He wants to kind of do, the sneaky, devious side of the Joker, but then at the same time, he kind of wants to save the day and be the hero aspect of Batman. So, I thought that was, unique that he came up with that concept. And then later in the video, he doesn't have any makeup on. It's almost like he's just playing himself. So you have this character that's sort of like both Batman and the Joker. It's kind of like, that's the party man right there.
Yeah.
Because he brought it back for the party man. So it's kind of like, here's party man, and this is what he looks like, But yeah, I mean, I thought it was a great idea. And I think I remember I heard some critics say like, well, Prince doesn't know if he wants to be Batman or the Joker. And it was like, well, he's embodying both. And I thought that was
right.
From an artistic perspective, I think that was a great idea.
Yeah, I mean, and that's it, the nature of duality, which is,
Right.
Common exploration in all ancient cultures. It's one is not absolute over the other. It's a thing
Right.
where you're trying to be, centered or balanced and try to, get to a level to where you're peaceful because you have those polarities in harmony.
Right, and that's a key, harmony, keeping that balance, sort of like with the yin and the yang,
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, you're right, they're not, neither is is complete absolute. There's still a portion of one in each one of those elements. But the key is that it's in balance, and that was, I thought he did that like flawlessly, playing Batman and the Joker, and he's going around, he's singing the songs, and and he kind of flashed towards, because then when the break in the song, when they get into like, I always call it the funkier aspect of Bat Dance.
Yeah.
You get the funkier aspect of Bat, and then he's playing himself at that point. And I've always thought that was so unique because once again, you got that dichotomy, because at the first part of the song, this is, I don't want to call it was confusion, but it was like almost a heavier rock feel to it. And then bam, we get into this little funky, we got the rhythm guitar going, and you got the heavier bass line coming in, and it's like, yeah. And then you got flashes of him just, the way he regularly look, and then flashes of I forgot he didn't back then. I don't think he called it Party Man. What did he call that character that was Batman and the Joker? I thought he had a name for that character. I can't. I don't think he called it character Party Man. I think he called it something else.
Right, because it was sort of you're right, because in that one, yes, the Batman and the Joker, where in the Party Man video, there's that Joker side.
The Joker side, right.
Then the Prince side.
Right.
That he called I don't know.
I can't remember.
If anybody out there listening, jump in the comments and let us know if there was a name for that one. Yeah, because I mean, when I remember the CD, because it was, because I remember, I think you got me the cassette, and then later on I got the CD, and like probably within that week, because I was like, oh, this is so good, I just got to have the CD too. So I went and got like the CD, and with the booklet, it had all the lyrics, but then it would have, say the future, but it would say, performed by Bruce Wayne, and then Electric Chair performed by the Joker.
Right.
And that. So I don't know if it was sort of based on that element of it. But again, it's a stroke of genius. I mean, now that we're talking about it, to me, I actually think it comes across better this way through the Batman soundtrack than it does with Love Sexy. And I can hear a whole section of
how dare he?
Heresy. I say.
How dare he?
He said the B word.
Right.
No, but I mean, but seriously, yeah, I think the execution works
Oh yeah.
better because it is using, I guess, with using a mainstream fictional character, um, you know, that's huge in pop culture.
Hmm.
It's easy to get that message across. But the thing is, Prince being Prince, is that handing it over so either subtly or even in some cases overtly, it still kind of created this divide. I know we were kind of talking about
Yeah.
that early, kind of prior to the show, in terms of how things are presented, and it then creates this division, and it seems to be more prevalent now. But with Love Sexy, like I said, we've done a whole show about it, to where, yeah, we could see where it did lose a lot of people. But in this case, this reached more people. And, like I said, some got it, some didn't.
Yeah.
But like I said, I think the execution was better. And I don't know if that was something that Prince, that was calculated with, that he did knowingly, or again, part of that symmetry, because it's like, oh, well, this fits with the context of the movie, or what I think the movie should be, or what I think the movie's about. That this song works, or whatever. Or I presented this to Tim Burton, he didn't like it, so I went and wrote something else that he did like, and it
Right.
still works. They both agree it works in the context of the film. I don't know. That's a very interesting question for that one.
Yeah.
Like I said, if anyone knows, drop us a comment, and it'd be nice to, I don't know, see who was. I mean, kind of still have the Love Sexy. I know he was changing bands. Like the band changed from when he was working on the soundtrack to that one performance on Saturday Night Live, their anniversary special, where he performed Electric Chair.
Okay.
And it was like, whoa, where's Sheila E? Oh, she's gone. Who's this? Who's this dude with the big hat on the drums? I mean, he get me throwing down, but who's this dude? And what's Patrice Rushen doing over there? Okay, well, there's Miko and Levi. Okay, cool. But who's this person?
Right.
And then that Party Man video, same thing. Like who, what? But I would say maybe anybody that was around while he was working on it. Yeah, I wish we can hear what get their thoughts on it, or did he discuss it with them
Right.
at all? Because this was kind of along the lines of, to me, what I always enjoyed about Prince, and that just goes back to the early days, For You, Prince, Dirty Mind, 1999 controversy, where it was produced, written, arranged, and performed by Prince.
Right.
To me, which I always felt was the most interesting Prince. I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, I love, the Revolution's contributions, Purple Rain, Round the World in a Day Parade. I love the Sign of the Times, Love Sexy Band.
Yeah.
But to me, just the stuff where it's just him and he's isolated in the studio and he's playing everything imaginable. It's just a different energy.
Right.
That I get. And that was one of the refreshing things about the Batman soundtrack, that at least for that brief moment, it was a return to that.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right, because he did it all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, you kind of have it a little bit with Graffiti Bridge afterwards, but then from that point forward, then it's some iteration of the new power generation, which again, I enjoy all of those, lineups of the new power generation. But again, like I said, I always it's a different energy.
Right.
When it's him, so I don't know if it's just that frequency that, I don't know, gives it more weight or more something to it.
Well, it's called pretty much being in the flow, when you are so focused and so concentrated on what you're doing that, I mean, literally transcend space and time, as it were. You can get so caught up in the flow. And I think you have not experienced that before you even know it. 24 hours could have already passed. You're like, oh my God, 24 hours have passed.
Yeah.
And you get into in this flow. And it's great because when you're in flow, you're at your most creative because your energy, you're so focused on, you're just so focused on this project. You're like, here's the song and this is how I envision it. And then it's so, it is, you may start with the bass line and you're like, well, let me change it up a bit. And then that begets another, maybe another bass line to another song. You're like, hey, you know what? I'm going to come back to that bass line and probably, maybe use it for something else. And you get into, and it's like, and this is where there's a love, before the call, we talked about embodying it. And as I said before, when you embody something, you think, feel, speak, and act in accordance to the very thing that you embody. So you embody the music, as it were. You become the music, and and this is why, if you work and not to take anything away from the revolution or anything like that, but obviously, if you're by yourself, you're in the studio and you're laying down these tracks, you're by yourself, you can get so you can embody the music and become the music. In fact, the music plays through you. I think it was Beethoven who said that somehow his brain could just pick up on the music that was already there. And there's also certain circles that said, our knowledge that we pick up is not localized in our brain. It's actually out in the field, and our brains are sort of like receiving stations, if you will. But once again, just like everything in the universe, everything vibrates on a certain level. So you need to make sure that you are, and I'm sorry for getting a little deep here.
Oh, no, go ahead, man.
That, you want to make sure that your vibrations match the frequency of what it is that you are desiring. So when he's by himself, you get into that zone. It's easy for someone to kind of knock you off if they like tap you on the shoulder, like, hey, dude, I want to go get some White Castles. You want a double cheese? You're like, no, leave me alone. And sometimes you have to kind of go into the silence, as it were, and you get into this flow, and you transcend time and space. You don't even, you're not even aware that you are actually in a body anymore, even though you're in a body, but you're not aware. There's no hunger. There's no, there is, no thirst as far as like in the physical side of things. And that's what, a lot of the energy you pick, that you pick up when it's, written, arranged, produced, and performed by Prince. You're like, cool. And like I said, and not just take anything from the bands, because those are like super talented musicians. Like,
Yeah.
oh my goodness, it's like, wow. But I can kind of understand when, if people say, oh, well, he's a control freak. But, it's sort of like, when you get a taste of that bliss, it's kind of hard to like, I kind of want to taste that bliss again. And I know that I can only taste it when I get into the flow. And, a lot of people may not understand it. Oh, he's a workaholic and he's this and he's that. But you embody the music, you become the music.
Mm.
And it's like, wow, and then only afterwards when you look back at it, because you're looking at it back, from a different perspective, you're almost, as you look back at it, you're looking at yourself almost as a third person. And like, wow, I'm pretty sure, you went back and like, wow, I did that. Wow. Okay. There's things that I remember I recorded. I'm like, it's so funny. There's things you brought to me and I'm like, I wrote this. Yeah, I did this. You're like, yeah, dude.
Yeah.
And I know what that feels like wow, so as we speak now, I need to get back in the bliss on a few things now, but yeah, that's the energy that you pick up. And I feel like a lot of people pick up on that energy also. And a lot of people, oh, well, he's just a control freak. And I was like, no, I don't look at it as a control freak. That he knew what he wanted, and not to say that, well, I know what I want and nobody can give it to me. It's like, I'm pretty sure they could, but he just felt like it's something that he embodied, that this is me, this is what I am. And it's just, I don't know, it's just, I'm trying to find the words for it, but that energy, that's the energy you was picking up on, would be that bliss, that total embodiment of becoming the music, and tapping into that realm of, if you will, of creativity, where your frequency, your vibrate. Obviously, because we're always vibrating. Everything in this universe vibrates, but then everything has a certain frequency that it emits, and then your frequency matches up with that particular creativity that you're looking for, because there's a strong desire to create, and there is a frequency of creation that just is giddy when you like get in tune with it. So yeah, I mean, it's awesome. You're right. It was with the Batman soundtrack. It was a return to that, and I'm glad you brought that up, because I can, when you look at everything that pretty much after like some of those earlier albums, For You and Controversy and Dirty Mind, when it was just all him, this was a pleasant return, and I think this is one of the reasons why we liked it. But yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. I mean, it's total. Yeah. With everything you said, I mean, that really hits home, and it explains a lot
yeah.
too. And probably one of the final things I want to touch on in regards to this too, you hit it on the head. And then as I'm listening to you and trying to formulate my thoughts, I was like, the lyrics too, are something that we take for granted. Like you said, the lyrics of Electric Chair,
Mm-hmm.
the lyrics of The Future,
Mm-hmm.
Vicky Waiting. One of the things I had locked into for years, is that line of, talk of children still frighten me. Is my
Right.
character enough to be one that deserves a copy made? And I would used to sit and go, yeah. Yeah, it was, until the reality kicked in. Like, yeah, it was a frightening concept,
Right.
like, and am I worthy of that?
Right.
And but as I've become a parent, you've become a parent, like I said,
Yeah.
that reality, once that reality kicked in, then it's like, well, wow, and still when I listen to that now, I listen to it and just kind of have that laugh, like, well, you know, hopefully my character was enough,
Right.
and like I said, just to, having to watch them grow, make their own choices and, accomplishments and this and that and whatever, embracing certain sides of the force, for lack of a better description. But like, yeah, it's fascinating to watch those journeys. And at the same time, to realize that, sort of divine purpose. So I always say that, it's egotistical to think that divine purpose is only uniquely for you. It's like, if we get the answer or we get a bit of enlightenment and it's like, oh, it's mine, it's all mine, nobody else. But, every single human being on this planet is here to get to some destination,
Right.
and, our children, are included in that, we're included in that, it wasn't just our parents, that would sit on these thrones and go, I'm great and benevolent. It's like, no, we all have that capacity and we're all trying to get there in
Right.
some way, shape, or form. And we're all given that gift of free will
Yep.
as well. And, to choose to follow the path or not to follow the path or go in this or whatever,
Yep.
So so that's always been the fascinating thing about parenthood for me, is that to watch that journey unfold and to see, where that goes and, what their purpose on this planet is supposed to be.
Right.
And meanwhile, we still got places to go to. So,
Right.
yeah.
Exactly.
And like I said, also the lyrics of Trust, heavy spiritual stuff going on in that too. And
Oh yeah.
trying to think, Scandalous. I mean,
Well, Scandalous is what it is. I mean,
well, there's a time and a place for everything.
Right.
And, he's the, the king of ballads. And I mean, really, granted, there was Do Me Baby, great ballad. It was some great, some good ballads even on the earlier stuff.
Yeah.
the beautiful ones, good ballad, international, good ballads. But ever since Adore, I had always measured his ballad or his ballads and held Adore as the standard. And that one didn't disappoint. When Two in Love, that was a pretty good one too. That held up as well. But Scandalous, that was another one. And yeah, that's the one to have, if you want to, do your thing and have that on your mixtape or have it on your playlist. That's a good ballad to have.
Oh yeah.
On it. And and like I said, it wasn't, the lyrics aren't cheesy at all. It's I think his ballads lyrically have always gotten better over time.
Well, yeah, I mean, yeah, it shows, evolution and growth, which is good. Um, and I think that's one thing that Prince always wanted to do. I mean, if you're not growing as a person, you're not evolving. And that's one thing that he never wanted to sit still. And I think the critics were like, "Oh, give us another Purple Rain album." I mean, you're right. He could have written another Purple Rain album, but there's things that when you're evolving, you have to step out of that comfort zone. And this is like to anything in life. You can't. I mean, there's a time to play it safe, but there's a time to kind of risk it.
Yeah.
And and it's especially a lot of things in my life where that I'm glad I took the risk. And instead of sitting back wondering, what if or what I could, what could have happened. And, staying in your comfort zone, you don't grow. And I think that's one thing I think I've told you once before, is if a person's the same person they were 5 years ago, you're doing something wrong. I mean, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, even to a certain degree, physical, you should not be the exact same person you were. If you're holding
Exactly.
some type of negative belief against a person or against a group of people that you had 5 years ago, 10 years ago, that negativity has energy and it has an attractor factor. And, the reason for existence is all about growth, and sometimes we have to step out of that comfort zone, listen to a different type of music, go see a different type of music, maybe go view different type of art, listen to both sides of an opinion, and I mean, it just goes on and on. So I know, and I want to stay in line with this being a Prince conversation before
Yeah.
get into philosophy here, but yeah, and this is that's one thing I've always liked about Prince is that uh, Prince continued to evolve, and each one of his albums are different. I mean, if you want to say, well, hey, you always got that Minneapolis sound because you always got to have the chili sauce. So you got to hear that on a lot
Chili
of
sauce.
albums, but still, the chili sauce was it even evolved. So there was evolution and growth even with chili sauce. So you know, yeah, and the Batman soundtrack once again, different type of album. So
Yeah. So, give it a chance. Go back and, hopefully this will give you something to look forward to when you try to approach it from a different perspective.
yeah,
Like I said, I don't know if it's I don't know. I'm not really big on top 10 lists, top five. I've tried to do those before, and they always, to me, it never looks as cool as when other people do it.
yeah,
But it's like, or like I wanted to be as cool as that, and maybe try to be too cool. But I don't know. It's not. It's one I enjoy. Like I said, it's one of
right,
those. I mean, there are Prince albums where, like I said, for some weird reason, they are literally the soundtrack to stuff going on. You know,
right, right,
like Purple Rain was this weird thing that it was everywhere. Um, in a lot of things, it was almost like a flashpoint to certain things, to where a lot of people and I'm thinking more positive situations too, not going to dwell on any negative stuff, but like positive things that have happened in life, people, it was always there. Around the world in a day, another one, parade, another one, sign of the times, especially was one. Love Sexy too. Even though really in the scheme of things, Love Sexy kind of came and went almost. It didn't have that impact as, even say Around the World in a Day in Parade, where they kind of managed to kind of limp into the next year where, Love Sexy was just kind of gone as quickly as it, came in. But even then, just that, like I said, getting, going to the store, buying that cassette, having PC drop that Black album, to me the same day,
Right.
To, us checking him out at the Oakland Coliseum and then the after show at the Warfield, things like that, So, Batman was no different. Like I said, being home that summer, it was, some fun stuff going on, and a couple of crazy things too.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
But I mean, it's, like I said, just going back to, those peaceful moments of, like I said, playing the CD and reading the booklet. Plenty of, like, I was working at this spot where I was working nights, and I would have a Walkman, and I know I had Batman. I can't remember what else I had. Whatever was going on at the minute, maybe that was the second, but Batman was always a part of that. So like late nights working, listening to the Walkman on break and lunch. It's an enjoyable record, and
Yeah.
like I said, the lyrics hold up. The sounds, it doesn't sound dated. It doesn't have like a cheesy 80s sound or a cheesy 90s sound. To me, Lemon Crush, to me, is probably, I think, his second best attempt at New Jack Swing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Acknowledge Me, It's a Crime that song never came out like in 93 or even 94. Because to me, that was his best, what's that guy album, The Future album? I mean, although Teddy Riley is the inventor of New Jack Swing,
Right.
it's like you're not really not going to outdo him in that because he invented it.
Right.
But to me, Prince doing New Jack Swing, Acknowledge Me was his best effort. But yeah, Lemon Crush was like the second best attempt.
Yeah. I would say that. Yeah.
So yes, I mean, it's a lot of great songs on it. And I don't know, we'll wrap up with our absolute final thoughts. So I want to kind of spend these last few minutes back to the Batman. And just kind of like, for those, if you enjoyed the 1989 movie, which is really the central focus of this episode, I was kind of disappointed that, Prince didn't do the follow-up, Batman Returns, that, there was something missing there. I don't even know who had the hit, because they started doing different artists for the
Right.
soundtracks after that. So I don't know. I know Batman Forever, that Seal had Kiss from a Rose. That was pretty good. But
Yeah.
everything else just kind of fell flat for me. It's like, well, I don't care who's, what artist is on there. Who did
Right.
the soundtrack? Who did the score? I don't even think, I think Danny Elfman wasn't part of the later ones, was he? Because I think once Tim Burton was gone, everybody was gone.
Oh yeah, once yeah. You know what? I would need to fact check that before I start saying yeah, because I don't know.
Yeah, but when it came to Batman films, it's kind of like after that, I didn't care who did
Right.
who did the soundtrack. I just want to watch Batman and see if it's a good Batman movie. But that being said, if you enjoy the movies, whether it's Michael Keaton, whether it's Ben Affleck, whether it's Val Kilmer, George Clooney, Christian Bale, Robert Pattinson. For those that aren't comic book sweaties like us, and you might want to be interested in maybe picking up a graphic novel. There's 80 years of Batman comic books to choose from. So
Wow.
So what is it about the two of us that, like I said, it was a barbershop trip to the barbershop with my dad, and right next to the Ebony and Jet was a Batman comic book. It looked cool, and it's like, it looks just as cool as this Fantastic Four comic. And Spider-Man was my second comic book. So it was like, and who's this Daredevil guy? Like, oh, that looks cool too. So I guess, starting off for me, it would be those early 70s. Like I said, the big one, the one that brought Batman out of that campy image, the very first to do that was Denny O'Neil as the writer, and Neil Adams. Actually, both of them. Neil Adams passed away recently. Denny O'Neil, I think, passed away a few years ago. But they were instrumental in bringing Batman back to the kind of dark and gritty, world's greatest detective, going out at night, pounding the heck out of criminals. They brought Joker back to being this homicidal maniac, so it was like no more gadgets stuff. They created Ra's al Ghul. So if you don't know who that is, just watch Batman Begins. But that was kind of the first for me. And then the second thing I noticed was around mid 70s. And this was Detective Comics. I forget the numbers of the issues, but Steve Englehart and Marshall Rogers.
Okay.
That run, again, they probably had the second best Joker story of the 70s. Also, too, they brought like the Penguin back, and he wasn't corny. I mean, he still had the umbrellas and stuff, but he was more like this mob boss, crime figurehead. He just wasn't stealing birds and whatever he was doing on the TV show and stuff. But yeah, that was a cool run. I mean, there are so many, even before then, like the early stuff, even the campy stuff from the 60s. That was cool because at least they attempted to it wasn't always dark and gritty. He was still out in the daytime, but those elements of what you see in the TV show, the Batmobile, how the Batcave was presented at that time, those started with those runs.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, like 1964 was, I think it was, I forget, Julie Schwartz, who was the editor of DC, but it was Carmine Infantino, who was the artist, was responsible for the circle, the bat circle, the yellow circle, and all of that, and making changes because Batman, starting in the 50s, the sales weren't so great, and it was those changes that they made in 1964 that led to the TV show, and then after the TV show, it was Batmania. Just like the Beatles had all kind of merchandise, Batman had all kind of merchandise. But back to the comic runs, of course, the obvious go-to nowadays is Frank Miller's The Dark Knight Returns.
Oh yeah,
that was, it was that comic book to which we actually imagined Batman's voice. Because prior to that, even in cartoons, Batman kind of had an even tone,
right.
Even Adam West, it was like Adam West didn't change his voice when he put on the Batman costume.
Yep.
But when we read Frank Miller's Dark Knight Returns, from that point forward, it was Clint Eastwood. That was the voice we would hear when he would be in the Batman costume. And, Michael Keaton made it work. Christian Bale, nah. Great Bruce Wayne, great Batman. Not a fan of the voice. But, everybody else has done a really good job with it. But, yeah, Dark Knight Returns. That really put the final nail in the coffin for the the Batman TV show. It was from that point forward, whether they were making a Batman movie or an animated series, that ended up being one of the inspirations or the template for how Batman should be presented, from the 80s on.
Yeah.
Let's see. I know, like I said, there's 80 years of comics, but those are sort of my three, top picks if you want to go, understand the Batman comics or, how they're able to draw inspiration, for the various films that we've had over the last 30, 40 years.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, well, you know what? Even if, we can throw in the Killing Joke also. Somehow.
Oh, yeah.
The Killing Joke. I mean, this is when you really get into the psychological aspect of Batman, and I think, as you can say, when in the 70s, when Denny O'Neil and company were writing, and you're right, he was more of, I guess, more of a detective, and one of the, and I think one of the appeals to Batman, because I think from a merchandising point of view, Batman has always been a little slightly more popular than Superman, because technically Batman doesn't have any powers. So right. One thing that I think that Batman represents is when a person becomes so focused and hyper focused, if you will, that he can go against someone like Superman, because he's smart, so it takes intelligence. And I mean, granted, it was kryptonite that helped bring Superman down, but it was the intelligence on how to use the kryptonite.
Right.
And Batman has always been that one character that, I think in some of the comics, it was, and I can't remember that comic run, but when they revamped the Batman and Robin, where they really made Batman really, really edgy, when they captured Green Lantern and it painted the whole room yellow.
Yeah.
Oh man, that was funny. And just the whole dialogue between them two, and Batman is like, you're one of the most powerful individuals in this planet, and you're a dick. You just,
right.
You got this power, you don't know how to wield it, and and so Batman is always had that appeal that, to a certain degree, he's kind of like the underdog, and everyone kind of loves to root for the underdog. And I think that's one of the reasons why, once again, from a merchandising point of view, Superman has always been the most popular. I mean, look at the movies. There's more Batman movies than there are Superman. I mean, I think Christopher Reeve did what, 4, if I'm correct, and then
2 great ones.
Yeah, and then Henry Cavill did. He did 2. No, he did 1. Well, if it counts. Well, he did just 1 solo. Then after that, it was Batman versus Superman, and then Justice League.
Right.
So
he deserved a second.
Right. So he hasn't had a second one. So you're basically looking at 5 solo Superman movies compared to how many Batman movies?
Oh well,
you started with about Keaton. So Batman has always had that commercial appeal because he was sort of like the underdog. He's not. He doesn't fly. I mean, when he does fly, obviously, it's like with the Bat jet. He can't really run fast, but he has a Batmobile. Or as he said in the Justice League, his superpower is that he's rich, so he can fly. Yeah. So, and I think that that's one of the appeals to Batman is that now, granted, in the comic book, he was doing some more than human type feats. It's like, dude, how do you jump from that building to the next? I know you studied underneath certain ninjas and things like that, but
Parkour.
yeah,
Yeah, that's the thing now, parkour.
So, so yeah, so those series that you named are pretty good. Dark Knight Returns, The Killing Joke. For someone who may not kind of understand the whole Batman mythos, as far
Joker,
as
yeah.
yeah,
Joker for that one.
right, Joker too, and it's, once again, it's almost like a yin yang. It's like Joker and Batman almost kind of depend on each other for their existence. And I think Joker's always joked with him about it, like, yeah, you won't kill me because you need me. Without me, there's no you.
Mm-hmm.
And Batman like, so yeah, I mean, yeah.
Another one. Under the Red Hood, that story arc.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Under the Red Hood. Yeah, I forgot about that one. Wow. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of good ones, and I know, like, recently, I think there have been more. I mean, but see, but the other, and the flip side to that, you run into the problem with oversaturation. Because right now, if you walk into a comic book store, dude, there would just be so many Batman comics. I wouldn't even know where to start. I'm like, he's over in Russia.
Yeah.
Hey, he's off world. He's like, what?
That would have to be a different type of a show.
Yeah. Yeah. Today was all about, this particular Batman film and its relation to the Prince soundtrack. So, and I like that.
Well, yeah, that, and the comics industry as a whole, it's going through kind of along the lines of what we were talking about earlier. There's more agendas than there are character. Where it's like, I always go with Stan Lee, where it's like, it's about the character, it's about the story,
right?
What they are, what they do, what they look like. All of that is irrelevant if you can't sell who this character is as a person. It's like, regardless of whatever title or whatever race you want to put on them, it's like, no, sell the character, sell the story, make us care about why this person is going through A, B, C, D, E, and F. That's what, that's what made Spider-Man universal. That's what made a lot of Marvel characters universal.
Oh yeah.
Same thing with Batman. It's like, yeah, great, there's Superman. And yeah, when he was first created, yeah, he was the biggest thing going. Even though the original Captain Marvel, which they call Shazam now, was even more popular than Superman at one point.
Yeah.
But, Batman, why he's able to endure, it's because, yeah, of course, not all of us are, we're not billionaires or anything like that, but that human quality of, okay, I don't have any superpowers, but I still deserve to stand next to, with DC's pantheon, these sort of gods almost.
Right.
His intelligence, is his superpower. Next to being rich, of course. But so yeah, that's the thing with the comics industry right now, is that it's trying to appeal to groups of people where it's like, no, you're here to capture a people,
right.
And not just, and now they're just kind of figuring it, it's like, yeah, so they have to rely on Batman now to sell these books now, or save the company. And, Marvel is doing a little bit better, but yeah, DC, I think, is kind of really feeling it.
Oh yeah.
With that. But like I said, that's a whole nother show, a whole nother, type of show. Maybe we'll get to do that one day. But yeah, back to the Batman. So Alex, so like you said, you mentioned Killing Joke, and as we kind of touched on Under the Red Hood, any other final comic runs that the readers can dive into?
Now, I didn't read this one, but I heard a lot of cool things about it. Is it and it's just slipped my mind. Is it the Batman who never laughs?
Oh, the Batman Who Laughs?
Who
Yeah.
laughs? Yeah,
Yeah.
Batman Who Laughs. That's it. I haven't read it, but I heard it was supposed to be really, really good. So the Batman Who Laughs.
Let's see. I've read some of it. Uh, you talk about, yeah, Batman from other worlds, or this whole
Oh,
multiverse
yeah.
thing. Oh,
Making it to work.
yeah.
So, yeah, it gets confusing at that point. That's when we talk about that oversaturation.
Yeah, but that one to me was pretty good though.
Okay.
That one was pretty good, especially when they, I guess the prelude to all of that, they had like there was an issue where Batman was a Green Lantern,
Hmm.
and there was another one. He wasn't Amazonian. I think he was going toe to toe with Wonder for something about it, but it was like, yeah, so all these different ones, but there was one reality where the Batman became more like the Joker than Batman.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and yeah, it is. It's a good one. That's probably one of the better recent ones. Joker War was a pretty good one, and then there was a run after that that deals with the character that trained with Bruce Wayne, kind of became a crime fighter in his own right. I think his name was called Ghost Killer, I think.
Hmm.
Yeah, and as I haven't kept up since that run
Oh, okay.
of it, but yeah, I mean, any classic ones that come to mind?
Um, no, you pretty much touched.
Yeah, we're the 70s.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're like I said, those and not to say that there haven't been bad Batman. There's been, like I said, a lot of great runs.
Yep.
I can name another one, Arkham Asylum. If you can get your hands on that one, that one's a
Oh,
deep,
yeah.
yeah, that's a deep one. Batman is locked up in Arkham Asylum and has to get out, and it's gothic. And so I think Grant Morrison did that one. He's
Yeah.
done a lot of interesting Batman stories as well. So yeah, like I said, there's 80 years of history you can choose from. Depends how deep you want to go, or like I said, you've seen the movies or you've seen the TV show, and take a look at what inspires these things and why this character has been able to last for 80 years. It's just like, Prince had a 80s era, a 90s era,
Right.
21st century era. It's the same thing with Batman. There are people that love the original Bob Kane stuff from the 30s and the 40s.
Yeah.
And there's people that love the 70s. There's people that jumped on, really Dark Knight Returns is really Batman's Purple Rain. Really, if you look at it.
Yeah. No, you're right. That's
Yeah.
one way of looking at it. Yeah, that's a good comparison.
Yeah, because that was a comic book miniseries that people that didn't even read comics, they all of a sudden, they were seeing this in the newspaper and on the news and like, well, what's this about? And Batman, I haven't read Batman since I was a little bitty kid in World War II, and got them to pick up a comic book again after so long. And like I said, provided the template for every iteration of Batman you see except for the Joel Schumacher stuff, but
Well,
everything else, Christian Bale, Tim Burton, Matt Reeves,
Oh, yeah.
Dark Knight, heck, Year One by Frank Miller.
Mhm.
Yeah, we can go another 3 hours talking about classic Batman stories, but hopefully those will give you some kind of a idea of where to start, and then hopefully it can lead you to something different, because comics are cool. I got to that point at a certain age where it's like, you know what, I don't care who sees me with a comic book, they're cool.
Right.
Don't believe me, read one and holler back at me.
Yeah.
You know, I tell my wife that, you know, you and I, we cheated by becoming musicians and photographers, because without those two things, we'd be, you know, comic book comic
Oh
book sweaties.
goodness. Right. And the truth.
So, you know, people that read comics are cool. And of course, you know, thanks to the Big Bang Theory, you know that.
Right.
You know that. So I guess that's it. I don't know, Mr. Alex, or is it Bond, or is it? Come to think of it, who am I?
Who am I now?
But yeah, any, you know, like I said, any final thoughts on the Prince album or the Batman soundtrack, or?
No, it was, you know, for the listeners who have not heard it, I would, you know, greatly, I mean, I would think that it deserves a listen. Um, it didn't, as the one article I read, that it's one of those albums that just kind of got lost, as they said, in the digital archives, and I think people will enjoy it. You know, you may not like every song on the album, but you can have your favorites. You know,
Yeah.
hey, you know,
Yeah. And I say it's one that definitely deserves a remaster. As you pointed out earlier, you know, it is one of those 4 Prince albums that, because of the legalities of movie soundtracks, that's one that Warner Brothers, you know, that's the 4 cards that they hold very close to the chest. And, you know, while the Prince estate through Sony can release everything else, you know, and they have the bulk of the vault, you know, those 4 albums and anything that may have been turned in that didn't make it.
yeah,
You know, those are probably, you know, within the Warner Brothers vaults at this time. So, you know, I don't know. I think they may be holding out for anniversaries. You know, we got 2024 coming up, so maybe there'll be a reissue of a better Purple Rain deluxe set. Who knows? And maybe 86. I know some people don't want to hear that, but 86 may, or, you know, or 2026 get Parade super deluxe. But, you know, Batman, they may hold out for that. I don't know, is it 40th, 50th, 40th anniversary?
yeah,
Or, you know, I think they could just re-release the vinyl, you know, just put that out for, you know, for now. And then if they want to do a big remaster or something for a big anniversary, do that. But yeah, I mean, I enjoy the CD. The CD sounds great. Listening to it on streaming, it definitely, to me, needs a remaster.
yeah.
So it can sound better on streaming. But the CD still sounds pretty solid. Last time I played the CD.
Oh, okay, cool.
So I think that's it. So Prince Estate, if you're listening, well, actually, yeah, Warner Brothers, if you're listening.
I was going to say, yeah, I think this one, yeah. If they're listening, yeah.
Give us the vinyl. You know, put that out now. Next record store day, something.
Yeah.
And that's going to end this episode of Amari Purple Talk. I want to thank my guest, Alex B, for returning to the show, and
Thank you.
Anytime.
Thank you for having me.
Anytime. In fact, it was one portion of this that gave me an idea. We should do a Jill Jones episode like this.
I like Jill Jones.
Oh yeah. That was another one. 87. That was like Sign of the Times, Madhouse, Jill Jones. That was sort of the trifecta, I think. Like 87 was a good year, and that was a pretty powerful record. You know, we've tried, you know, whether it's Prince Twitter threads, you know, more people should hear that album, and that's an album that definitely deserves to be back in print, you know, vinyl, CD, streaming, the whole 9. So yeah, we have to make that one happen. For sure.
That would be great.
I'll work on that one. But until then, thanks once again for tuning in. Again, thanks for supporting the show. Like I said, I'm trying to get more episodes out. We're winding down season 3, going to start gearing up for season 4. I'm going to try to do as much in advance so I can do more episodes like this, have Alex on more often, have other people on more often. So trying to make that happen for either the end of the season or next season. But thank you all for tuning in and supporting the show. Check out the website, AmariCommunications.com. And again, keep liking, subscribing, downloading, hit the notification bell. And until then, create your day and create your life. Peace.
Peace.
People, where the purple party people at? Time to get on the one. Keep it on the one. So where all the purple party people at?